was crazy. It's crazy. The Odyssey's crazy. I would easily say best film of the 21st century. Completely serious on that. That's it's insane. In I think 7th grade, I read this copy of the Odyssey, and I think this was like considered for several decades. This was like the translation of the Odyssey. This author, Emily Wilson, she was like, "Oh, this copy is actually very misogynistic," and then she made a better one. I read this in 9th grade. Annotations there, you see. Anyway, it's such a this is such a classic story, so no wonder someone put it out onto the big screen. I'm very happy with this movie. I think it's a perfect movie. There's so many aspects of it that just feel so complete. They feel so clean. Um, every style of filming, all the acting, the writing, it's just all very, very impeccable. The writing in particular is pretty crazy because it does feel a lot like, these translations. It feels a lot, they speak in weird riddles sometimes, but it's not enough where you can't really understand what's going on. And every actor plays their character just right. Every time I saw Tom Holland on screen, I was like, wow, he looks like a little kid, and I hate this guy. Every time Robert Pattinson was on screen, I was like, wow, this guy sucks. I hate this guy. It is a beautiful movie. It is beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. It's insane how it was made, though. Complete IMAX cameras. Everybody always says this, but the practical effects is what really kills it for me. The entire scene with the Cyclops is it feels so threatening because I really did believe that there was a giant there. It really, like, I think they do a lot with forced perspectives and animatronics, and maybe I doubt some blending from CGI. I mean, I don't know how much is computer generated in this film, but there's so much that feels so. It's just so real. I'm not too well versed in the book to really say what they missed. I know there's a few things. There was one kingdom that Odysseus traveled to before he went to Ithaca. I'm pretty sure there's nothing about bags of winds. There's a lot less involvement from the gods, and I'll mention that in a little bit. What else is there? They don't feature the sirens as prominently, but they are definitely in there. The other thing I'll mention is the pacing is insane. 2 hours and 50 minutes, and I wasn't bored at all. I don't know how that's possible. I was there were so many moments where I was watching it and I was just in awe by how grand it is. There was no scene that I felt dragged on for too long. The only thing I'll mention is while the audio and the score are insane, the ambient noises are crazy. Um, it is sometimes a little hard to hear the dialogue, and that's just something Christopher Nolan does. Um, it's like every movie he's ever made, it's just a little bit too difficult to understand what they're saying, especially if you're watching a movie like this that is so heavy in the visuals and it's so heavy in the dialogue and you can't hear the dialogue all too well, it's a little hard to understand things sometimes. So I would definitely benefit from a rewatch. So it is a classic Christopher Nolan movie. There are some, I'd say it's ambiguous. There's some very minorly ambiguous parts at the near the end. Um, the first one is that it really does seem like Odysseus is dying, but then he goes on and he talks about he has this desire to go to the west with Penelope and avenge the people who died in the Trojan War and all the people that he had killed and honor them, and then have Telemachus, whatever, as king. It's a good ending. It's a very happy ending, and I think that's what happens in this one. I'll have to check. Wow, I can't believe I'm checking the book. That's what happens in the book. Though there is one way you could look at it that um, he dies and he's just picturing this ideal, situation that could be. You could think of it that way. I don't want to. I'm going to think about it in a happy way. The other twist, I guess you could say, is that Athena isn't actually providing visions to Odysseus, and he's actually just imagining every interaction with Athena. There's this one scene where they have kind of a side-by-side framing with Athena's head getting chopped off, a statue of her, or a statue of Athena getting her head chopped off in the Trojan War. And I think it was the priestess. It was Zendaya. She gets killed. Her head gets chopped off. So one way you could look at it is that Athena takes the form of the priestess to provide him visions of, to resemble his guilt for the Trojan War. The other interpretation is that he had guilt for the Trojan War and associated Athena with the priestess. And really, Athena never shows up and actually gives him any guidance. It's just that his guilt shows up and manifests into these visions. Because really, it only happens after the Trojan War that he gets, met with Athena. In the book, Athena does actually meet with Odysseus. There's a lot of involvement with the gods, and that's something else that I noticed, that there was really no image, like the gods don't really show up much at all. There are a few like powerful creatures that show up, like Calypso. She's a goddess, but she's a bit more like a nymph. Um, she's really only associated with nature. Circe is another one where she isn't. She can be considered a goddess, but she's more of a witch. So Athena is really the only god or goddess that really shows up in the film itself, if we think that the visions of Athena are actually Athena. There's several mentions, like the Cyclops is the son of Poseidon. And in the book, when they say that, and then Poseidon gets pissed at them, Poseidon actually does talk to them. Poseidon doesn't just make something happen. And there's like in the movie, Poseidon makes those whirlwinds that make their travels more difficult. But in the book, it's actually Poseidon there talking with them. There's a part at the beginning where Odysseus is talking to Athena, or who seems to be Athena, and he's like, "How do I know what the gods or the goddesses are saying?" And she's like, uh, "Can't you tell, the language of a child's smile, of a bountiful harvest, of the wind, of the sea?" So really, the gods do show up, but they only really show up in the ways that human eyes can see. So it's a much more spiritual look into the gods rather than them being actual personified people. And I find that much more interesting, that it is in a way that it's less fantasy, I suppose. There's still some fantasy elements, of course, giants and people turning into pigs and cyclopses and things like that. But we don't actually see the gods. And it does create a sort of mysticism that is very appealing, because they keep mentioning Zeus's law over and over again. They're always like, we always follow Zeus's law because that is what's right. But we never see Zeus. We never see any of the little messengers that show up in the book. In the book, Athena's involvement is like, huge. She is the one that, I think she actually convinces Calypso, or at least she gets someone to convince Calypso to let Odysseus home, and then she helps Odysseus get home. So, who's to say if it's really Athena in this? Because a lot of the actions are not done by some immovable force, like a god or a goddess. It's done by human intervention instead of divine intervention. So, I don't think Athena. I think Athena's in his mind. I didn't think of it at first, but I kept thinking about it now, and I'm thinking it's not Athena. The other thing I'll mention is, it's very good. The movie is very good at mentioning how, or going into depth at how complex of a character Odysseus is. He does have a character arc throughout the entire movie, and it's completed at the end. First, he when he goes to the Trojan War, he thinks, all of it is this grand, amazing, heroic battle. And then once he's finally in it, he realizes that people are being killed and people are being raped and people are being looted. Entire town is being killed. He starts to feel guilt there. And then on top of that, when he tries to go on a different route with his men, they start getting killed. And it's because of choices that he makes. He's leading them into suicide pretty much. And then he eventually kills off all the men on his boat, on his crew. And he starts feeling guilt for that. And then he finally admits his own guilt to Athena, and when he admits that, she disappears. Another reason why she probably is a figment in his mind. If you picture it like him and Penelope are able to go to the West or whatever, he finishes his character arc by saying that he's going to go to the West and honor his, fallen brethren, whatever. Of course, the book is very dense, and I do not study these books. Anyway, the movie is fantastic. It's great. Dude, I mean, I can't even explain how wonderful the movie is. I'm going to go see this movie again someday, probably soon, honestly. That was incredible. Um, Everybody go see it. It's crazy. I hope it wins something like Best Picture. It better. I don't even know how it couldn't. It's definitely going to be a nominee. But anyway, crazy. All right, see ya.